Killers build perfect alibis to fool human eyes. They delete text messages. They scrub away fingerprints. They make sure security cameras film their faces. But they always forget about nature. That is why detectives use a special science called forensic entomology. That just means using bugs to solve crimes. Most people just see a gross mess on a dead body, but scientists see a clock. A clock that cannot be hacked. Nature follows strict rules that a criminal cannot change. The life cycle of a baby fly cannot be tricked or paused. Let's look at 3 big court cases to see how powerful these bugs can be. First is the famous Florida trial of Casey Anthony. Her lawyers said a bad smell in her car trunk came from rotten kitchen trash, old food, a slice of pizza. But bug experts found tiny coffin fly shells that proved she was lying about the timeline. Second is the shocking case of Vincent Brothers in California. He claimed he was thousands of miles away in Ohio during a terrible family murder. It seemed like a perfect excuse, but scientists found crushed grasshopper pieces inside his car radiator. These tiny bugs made a map showing he drove straight back to the crime scene. The final case is the heartbreaking trial of David Westerfield. He was accused of stealing a 7-year-old girl named Danielle Van Dam. His lawyers tried to use desert maggots to prove he didn't do it. It started a huge courtroom battle over weather data and bug biology. All 3 suspects thought they had built perfect stories. They used airplanes, long distances, and locked rooms to hide. But nature has automatic rules that never stop watching. These tiny, invisible witnesses completely took away their freedom. This is how insects ruin the perfect alibi. In July 2003, a terrible crime shook a quiet California neighborhood. 5 family members were found dead inside their home. The victims were a mother, 3 young kids, and their grandmother. Police immediately suspected the father, Vincent Brothers. But Brothers had a great excuse that made him look innocent. Travel receipts showed he was in Columbus, Ohio during the murders. He flew out before the crimes happened. His electronic trail was totally solid. He used credit cards in Ohio stores and signed in at a local college. Detectives were stuck. They believed he secretly rented a car to make a super fast trip across the country. A 4,000-mile drive without stopping to sleep. But guessing is not proof. Car odometers can be changed easily. They needed real physical proof that his rental car entered California. The FBI took a big chance and seized the rental car. They sent the front bumper parts to Dr. Lynn Kimsey, a bug expert at UC Davis. At 70 miles per hour, the front grille of a car acts like a giant net. It hits flying bugs, dries them out fast, and saves their hard shells. Dr. Kimsey sat in her lab for hours using tiny tweezers. She carefully picked out tiny, crushed insect heads from the metal grill. Most were just houseflies and honeybees. Those live everywhere, so they proved absolutely nothing. The defense lawyers kept arguing the car never left Ohio. Then, her tweezers pulled out something totally different. It was a piece of a red-shanked grasshopper. This specific insect cannot live in Ohio. It only lives in dry areas west of the Rocky Mountains. Next, she found a tiny bug named Piesma costata. This insect only eats plants that grow in California's Central Valley dirt. The bugs created a natural map. A killer can wash his hands and tires, but he cannot erase the air he drove through. The different bug pieces formed a real stamp of the highway system. They proved the rental car had driven all the way to Bakersfield, California. Vincent Brothers was found guilty of 5 murders and sentenced to death. His perfect excuse was totally destroyed by one western grasshopper leg. But what happens when a criminal tries to hide a crime indoors? What if they hide a body inside a locked, dark car trunk? Turning a car into a warm box only changes the types of bugs that arrive. In July 2008, a scary emergency call grabbed the attention of the whole country. 2-year-old Kaylee Anthony had vanished from her home in Orlando, Florida. She had been missing for 31 days before anyone called the police. Investigators focused on her mother, Casey Anthony, because she was acting very strange. But detectives ran into a giant wall of lies and changing stories. A major piece of evidence sat inside the police car lot. It was Casey's white car, and it smelled awful. It was the unmistakable smell of a dead body. But by the time scientists checked the vehicle, the trunk was completely empty. The body was gone. The only thing left behind was a plastic bag of household kitchen garbage. The defense team claimed the smell was just normal, rotten trash. They argued that old food scraps and a slice of pizza caused the stench. The police had to prove a body had actually been in there. They called Dr. Neil Haskell, a famous pioneer in bug science. Haskell checked the trunk carpet and looked closely at paper towels from the trash bag. He did not find big, crawling maggots on the carpet. Instead, he found a single dried leg of a blowfly. Blowflies are always the very first to arrive after a death. They can smell a dead body from miles away within minutes. But a locked car trunk is very hard for a big fly to get into. The blowfly could not get inside to lay her eggs. Then, Haskell found the ultimate proof inside the car. The trunk lining was filled with dozens of tiny empty bug shells called pupae cases. These belong to coffin flies. They are microscopic, too small to see clearly without help. They have a superpower. They follow the exact gases released by a decaying body. Because they are so tiny, they squeeze right through the rubber seals of a car trunk. Once inside, they lay eggs. They eat, grow, and hatch into adult flies. The empty shells proved that a whole generation of bugs lived and died in that dark space. Haskell told the court that regular kitchen garbage cannot cause a full coffin fly life cycle. Only a dead body attracts them like that. The defense brought in their own expert, Dr. Timothy Huntington. Huntington did experiments by putting dead pigs inside car trunks in Nebraska. He argued that a real body leaves giant grease stains on carpet, but Casey's car only had tiny stains. This created doubt. The bug evidence became a giant scientific argument on national television. In the end, Casey Anthony was found not guilty of the main murder charges. It showed that explaining what bugs mean can be very difficult in court. But what happens when bugs do not just fight over a smell? What happens when two top scientists use the exact same maggots to argue opposite sides? In a high-stakes California trial, a little girl's justice depended entirely on math. In February 2002, a sad discovery made a quiet San Diego neighborhood famous in the news. 7-year-old Danielle Van Dam was taken from her bedroom in the middle of the night. Her disappearance started a massive search across the California hills. Detectives quickly focused on her neighbor, David Westerfield. He seemed very suspicious. Westerfield had taken his big motor home on a sudden trip to the desert. San Diego police watched him constantly, 24 hours a day, starting on February 5th. 3 weeks later, hikers found the little girl's body in the bushes. The body had been out in nature for a long time. The desert weather changed wildly between burning hot days and freezing nights. The prosecutors needed to prove Westerfield dumped the body during his desert trip. This case turned into a huge courtroom war over heat math. The scientific formula is called accumulated degree hours. Insects are cold-blooded. How fast they grow depends entirely on the temperature around them. A fly egg needs a specific, mathematically predictable amount of heat to grow into a maggot. It must absorb exact amounts of heat to move through its growth stages. Scientists collected hourly weather records. They used those records like a math equation to count backward. By matching the size of the maggots against the temperature logs, they found the exact hour the eggs hatched. The police expert did the math and proved the bugs started growing in early February. This timeline perfectly matched the exact days Westerfield was traveling alone. But the defense lawyers brought in their own bug experts to fight back. They argued the maggots showed a mid-February date instead. They claimed the bug clock did not start ticking until much later. This created a confusing puzzle for the court. Remember, after February 5th, Westerfield was surrounded by police who watched his every move. If the bug started later, it meant it was physically impossible for him to sneak past the police to hide a body. The whole trial depended on desert weather and tiny maggots. But the defense's maggot math was ultimately defeated by other physical evidence. Investigators found the little girl's blood inside Westerfield's motorhome. They found her hair on his bedroom pillowcase. They found matching carpet fibers. The jury looked past the confusing bug math and found Westerfield guilty. He was sentenced to death for the crime. It proved that while nature keeps excellent records, the weather can sometimes make the truth hard to read. These 3 big trials reveal a powerful truth about modern forensic science. Human witnesses can lie. They can be bought with money. They can be scared by smart criminals. Digital data on phones and computers can be deleted or left at home. But a criminal cannot stop nature from quietly recording what they did. A car bumper will always act like an invisible net that catches bugs. A tiny coffin fly will always slide through a rubber trunk seal. And the cold-blooded clock of a maggot always ticks at the speed of the weather. Vincent brothers, Casey Anthony and David Westerfield tried to build perfect alibis. They used plane tickets. They used long distances. They used sealed spaces to hide their tracks. But they all made the same mistake. They forgot that when human words cannot be trusted, nature stands up to tell the truth.